going to happen. So they're holding this thing down and holding it for dear life because they know once it gets out of the bag, everything changes. And in the States, it'll probably cause well, really globally, for the most part, it's going to cause mass panic. And here's what I link it to. The Fatima apparitions in 1917, and I need to give your listeners backstory on this so they have an idea. This again is all talked about in my new book, Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural. So I'm kind of jumping around different sections of the book as we get into this thing. But in 1917, a supernatural manifestation occurred in Fatima. Now, pretty much we can all agree on that. Something supernatural happened. The question is, what were we looking at? What was it really? The Catholic Church has claimed that this was an apparition or a manifestation of the Virgin Mary. I beg to differ, and before I get into it, my caveat is that I'm not Catholic bashing or anything else. I have no intention of doing that. What I'm saying is that I think we need to really look at what the eyewitnesses who were there talked about and saw, and were in fact we were set up for some sort of a deception. Is this a harbinger, a precursor, a dry run, if you will, of what is literally coming on the earth eventually? And of course, I'm from the camp that believes that this manifestation was not the Mary of the Bible in any way, shape, or form. It was literally a deception that was a mega lever and changed the paradigm of everyone in that field in 1917. The story goes simply like this: two shepherdesses and one shepherd boy had this apparition. They were communicated telepathically by this small entity, which they at first didn't know what it was. And it appeared in a very short skirt, which was just really bizarre for that time. That would have been considered incredibly immodest dress in 1917. So whatever this thing was, it appeared to be a small lady about 3 feet tall. The apparition, or whatever it was, never moved its mouth. It was very rigid and would kind of come from the sky and then float and hang over the oak tree where the children would see this thing, and it communicated to them telepathically. It never called itself the Mary of the Bible, at least not at first. Later on, that was kind of tagged on and added. And of course, the visions of Fatima, and allegedly the prophecies of Fatima, were supposedly Russia in World War I and World War II. That's open for debate, and there's different scholars who look at it and say different things about it. Certain priests at the time who were there that were very much aware of what was happening looked at it and questioned it, and actually believed that what they were looking at was some sort of a demonic manifestation. Cut to the chase, without getting because I can get lost in that for the next couple of hours. But to cut to the chase for your audience, the clergy asked for a sign. They said, "Hey, go back and tell whatever this apparition is to show us a sign." So they go back and they ask the apparition, give us a sign. And the apparition says, "Okay, next month on October 13th, which by the way was last Friday, and we just passed it. So it's kind of interesting. When was it actually? Yeah, last Saturday. I'm sorry. And so the day, a month later now, word has traveled in this small town of Fatima, Portugal, in 1917, and there's 70,000 people that are there in this field awaiting whatever the sign is going to be. They're not told what the sign is going to be. They're just waiting for it. And the apparition says that at 12 o'clock the sign will happen, okay? The first thing that I find incredibly spurious is 12 o'clock comes and goes, and the apparition doesn't manifest. In other words, nothing is there. And the people are standing out. It's been raining all day. There's been a light rain. The field is very muddy. Everyone is sopping wet. There's pictures of that. You can actually see a sea of umbrellas, and 70,000 people are gathered awaiting whatever's going to happen. There's a cross-section of humanity. The press is there. The clergy is there. Atheists are there. Communists are there. Soldiers, bankers, peasants, men, women, young, old, kids, everybody. Good cross-section of of what was, the populace in Portugal at the time. At 1 o'clock, the kids go, "There she is." Now, the people gathered in the field don't see anything, but the children do. And, of course, they immediately kneel and look at this manifestation. Shortly thereafter, what is described as, or what has been called, the miracle of the sun, which, in my opinion, is no miracle at all, but is a manifestation of a UFO, begins to manifest. And what witness after witness, when you go back into the record, describe, and you got to remember this, that at the time there was no verbiage for UFO. Those terms, UFO, flying saucer, flying disc, would be used in the 50s, late 40s, early 50s. That's when those terms were first coined. So it's not in a lexicon in 1917. Hence, people don't know what to call it. So when you read the transcripts of the actual eyewitnesses, this is the kind of things that we say. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it's accurate. It's accurate to, I would say over 90%. I'm not adding anything. People look up, and one witness says, I saw a dull silver disc. Another person says, I saw a disc that was spinning. Another person, we saw a spinning silver disc. We looked up and saw a dull gray disc. We looked up and saw a metallic disc, over and over and over again by all these people. And I think if you and I, knowing what we know now, were standing in that field or could transport ourselves into 1917, we'd stand and go, oh my gosh, a UFO. Of course, the sun did not fall from the sky. Whatever this thing was only locally in Fatima. Several miles away, 15 miles away, they saw nothing. They saw absolutely nothing. The sun was in itself in the sky. Nothing happened. So whatever this was, it was local. And what was happening is, I would suggest that this disc was probably a mile-wide disc that was in front of the sun, huge disc, and it began to descend. It began to wobble on its axis, and as it descended on the crowd completely, utterly panicked, screamed and yelled, fell to their knees. People thought it was the end of the world. Then when the disc came down low enough, there was like a yellow ochre light that kind of bathed everyone, dried everyone off. The earth was dry, and then up it went. People reported healings. So in my opinion, this is literally a harbinger, a dry run, a precursor of this kind of manifestation which is coming on the earth. And it's interesting that the present Pope Ratzinger, or Benedict, who at the time was called Cardinal Ratzinger, in 1980 apparently read The Third Secret of Fatima. Now, The Third Secret of Fatima, again, I talk about this in my book, Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural, but The Third Secret of Fatima I believe, has never really been revealed. I believe it's very apocalyptic in nature. He had read it, I think, in the 80s or early 90s. I'm not sure exactly which decade, but right around in that period of time where he's still cardinal, and says, yes, it's apocalyptic, and it's very, he believes in it, and he talks about it. Well, after he becomes Pope, he completely flip-flops, distances himself from it, and says, well, Fatima was from another time, which begs the question, why would he completely distance himself so radically like that? And in my opinion, and I did some research backstory on this, and I found what I believe might be some smoking guns which point to the direction. I believe that there's a cabal of elite people on this planet, and this, of course, gets into the whole Illuminati stuff. Of course. But that Illuminati is really a Luciferic cabal, and the subtitle of my book is The Coming Great Deception and the Luciferian Endgame. And what we're looking at is this entity, i.e. Lucifer, who at one time was a very good angel at one time, but obviously got a little twisted, and he's a super scientist. He's been around for thousands of years, and he has an endgame. And part of this endgame is to create this one world New World Order, as George Bush Sr. talks about, and that's where the thing is headed. That's where it's rushing. And I believe that, of course, that is a New World Order, an Illuminati. So is Benedict Illuminati? I have no idea. But I find it interesting that and here's my scenario, and I'll stop after this. Here's my scenario. What if Benedict realized, or was finally brought in, let's say, on the Inner Circle, and they showed him film, and they said, look, this is what Fatima was. We can't say that Fatima was a UFO because we can't go there. We can't discount it either because we've already said that Fatima, we already gave our stamp of approval on Fatima. So everybody's between a rock and a hard place. So what does he do? He just simply says this: Fatima was for another time and another place. And he distances himself from it, and that's it. Now, that's all conjecture, but it is based on some research. And, I'm never going to have an audience with Benedict, but I believe the same thing with, like Bush said this 2 weeks ago, which I was just appalled at. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I voted for the man twice. Really? I've distanced myself completely from him. He came out with the statement that if you're a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian, you're all praying to the same God. Well, if he had said that from any pulpit in the United States, on Monday, he'd have no pulpit. It's just the way it is. I mean, you just don't say that. As Christians, we don't believe that at all. And obviously wars have been fought for this, and we won't go there. But there was certainly a lot of tolerance in this country compared to other countries for this stuff. But you can't say that, because I believe that you're not praying to the same quote unquote God. But for Bush to say this, it begs the question again: what does he know that he's not? What has he been now privy to? So all this goes back to the one main point that they're waiting for this revealing, which, by the way, is the title of the third book in the trilogy. But they're waiting for some sort of event, which I believe will hinge on this war in the Middle East, which involves Israel. And by the way, the second nation mentioned in this prophecy is Iran. So that
really
chills up your back. Yeah,
really.
Second nation is named Iran. It's right there, and it's white and black and white. In the latter days, Iran is the second nation, and the first nation is Russia. And guess who was meeting this week? Putin and Ahmadinejad.
That's right.
I'm not making this stuff up, folks.
well, I hear what you're saying, and what I see here, and my kind of conclusions on all of this, because I'm totally in tune, so to speak, with what you're saying here. I see this as a kind of playing out of the Book of Revelations, basically, that this is used to some degree as a kind of blueprint even for the people that are at the top. What would you say to an idea like that?
Well, yes. I mean, I believe that this is all ramping up to the Book of Revelation. That book is, I believe, first of all, much of it is very literal, and the events that take place that he talks about will happen on this planet. I'm not looking forward to that. I hope that we don't have to go through it. I'm hoping that in some way those who believe in let's say Yeshua HaMashiach, the first century rabbi running around in Israel almost 2,000 years ago, and the experience of the early Christian church, I think that something will happen to us. I'm hoping that we're spared a lot of the nonsense that's coming down, but it is coming down, and it's obvious to see that the stage is being set. Things are rapidly closing in, and there's a paper actually which might become a new book, but it's called the Luciferian Dialectic, and a dialectic is basically it's a three-part idea, and that is you create a thesis which is then countered by an antithesis, and the end result, which is what you're trying to get anyway, is a synthesis. And we can look at the events of 9/11. And who or what pulled the trigger, and I'm aware of the conspiracies, and Hitler burned the Reichstag, and I know all the parallels, and I'm not accusing the United States government of allowing this to happen. I'm not. I'm just saying that I believe that there's a higher evil component to this called the Luciferians, and it's deliberate. And basically it's this, that the thesis was the idea of the terrorists coming in. Then, of course, we got the Patriot Act, and some people would even argue the right of habeas corpus, which, in other words, you just can't imprison someone. You have to charge them with a crime. Okay, that's what habeas corpus is, and then you have to set that up. And some people say the whole Guantanamo thing is, against habeas corpus. I actually attended a lecture, about a 4-hour lecture with some of the greatest legal minds in the country about the whole writ of habeas corpus and how it's being violated. And you can push and pull on that all day long. The fact that they are supposedly enemy combatants found in Afghanistan, are they entitled to habeas corpus? But that's a whole different discussion. But getting back to the point of the Luciferian dialectic, you've got the 9/11 event, which then the counter or the antithesis is the ongoing war on terror, which then somehow shifts into the war of Iraq. But here's the deal. The war of Iraq may be deliberate by powers that we don't even see, that actually segue into the Book of Revelation and prophetic utterances that happen over thousands of years ago, millennia ago, that are affecting our day. And here's the outline for your listeners, and I think this will kind of blow them away, because you probably have never heard of this before. Where I'm going to go with this is kind of new. It's sort of my own theory, and I've been working on it, and the paper is going to be coming out very shortly describing the events that I'm going to talk about. In the country of Iraq,